How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the Dedicated to Fitness live show, hosting by Josh and the one and only Coach Tori. How you doing today, babe?
Hello, I'm Swell. How are you?
Quite great, quite great. Well, we're going to go ahead and dive into the main topic today, which is why food is power, specifically for women, but this can help men as well, and how the bulk of the population actually spends most of their time under eating, which is very hazardous to your goals. So, to go ahead and tell me some tips and tricks that you've used to help yourself be able to, not fall into the under eating diet culture.
Um, I think the first one was understanding why macros are macros to begin with, specifically the big three, which is protein, carbs, and fats. And understanding the fact that we are biologically designed to utilize those as sources of energy. Now, protein is not a source of energy, but things like carbs and fats that are often like demonized by, diet culture and things like that. There's a reason why, for one, they're part of the big three macros, and for two, why we crave those things and why we enjoy them as much as we do is because we are literally biologically designed to utilize those as sources of energy. The second thing being is understanding that calories are energy. Instead of just seeing them as calories, if you view them as energy, it helps kind of change that mindset shift that like calories are the devil and like food is, carbs and fats are what going to make you gain all this weight. And that's just simply not the case. But that understanding that food is literally fuel for our bodies, and you're going to feel better by eating enough of it, especially depending on what your goals are. But this whole idea that like 1,200 calories is like the golden rule for weight loss. Now, while you will lose weight, um, you will only do so for so long before your body starts to fatigue. It starts to break down because your 1,200 calories is literally the caloric nutritional requirements for toddlers, not grown people, let alone women. Um, who actually need a lot more food than diet culture leads us on to believe. Um, for hormonal health, for strength goals, muscle building, all of that stuff. Changing that mindset shift that like calories and food um, are essential to progress in your goals. It's what helped me get out of the binge restrict and eating disorder cycle that I was in for a really, really long time. So, I don't know where to kind of transition from that, but I mean, I guess with my own personal story, like I was a chronic undereater. Um, that mostly had to do with medications that I was on for a while that would suppress my appetite, stimulant medications that are often used to treat ADHD, as well as like sleep disorders and things. Can really, really be detrimental to your overall health because they shut your appetite off, they kill your metabolism. Um, Something that I tell people is like, what do you notice people that have high metabolisms doing? Everyone is like, oh, I want a high metabolism. What do you always see somebody with a high metabolism doing? They're eating constantly, all the time. Um, and that is a sign that if you're hungry and you're getting hungry, that's a sign that your metabolism is doing what it's supposed to do. And by ignoring those hunger cues, you are repressing your body's natural metabolism and what it's designed to do. And if you feel yourself getting hungrier, especially as you're, lifting more and you're building strength, that's a sign that for one, you're putting on more muscle mass, and you are actually progressing. The more muscle you have, the more energy your body needs, not only to maintain that muscle, but to put on muscle as well. It takes a lot of food. Um, so I didn't really start noticing my own goals progressing to where I wanted them until I started eating more. I hit a plateau about 3 years ago. I was told you're not eating enough for your activity levels, and I trusted the professional that I was seeking advice from. Um, lo and behold, it had worked. And ever since then, I eat like a linebacker. And I mean, I have more confidence than I ever have in my entire life. So, transitioning from carbs are bad and fats will make you fat, just, it's not true. It's calories in versus calories out. You're going to gain weight if you're eating in a surplus. You are going to lose weight if you're eating in a deficit. That does not mean that you have to cut out carbs or cut out fats or um, cut out anything. Honestly, your body doesn't know that you're eating a cookie. Like, you know that you're eating a cookie. Your body doesn't know that it's a cookie. It knows that there is carbs and fats in that cookie. Um, you know, what do you? A lot of lifters you'll see eating candy because the candy is a quick source of energy and fuel. Like, your body doesn't know that it's a gummy bear. It just knows, oh, this is a quick energy source. I'm going to use that right now. And so there is a place for all foods within your diet. That's why we so heavily talk about the 80-20 rule, because if you eat for your goals 80% of the time, you can still enjoy your life the other 20%. And you should, because life is miserable without carbs. Anybody that's done a carbless diet knows that that's miserable. So should you be eating all fats and protein? No, not unless you are specifically required by, a dietitian. Specifically for people, I think, who have epilepsy is what the keto diet was designed for, if I'm remembering correctly. And if you don't have epilepsy, then reason for you to do that diet.
To unveil the veil of why fad diets work is whenever you restrict the food you can eat, you magically become in a calorie deficit.
Right.
If you can only eat proteins and fats, or if you can only eat carbs and protein, you're missing a whole macronutrient, so it's going to be hard to pick foods, which means you're going to be in a deficit. So that's the only reason why those things work. It's not because
it's similar to intermittent fasting as well, as you're restricting your time window, which is requiring you to eat less, which is why those things work. But they're not sustainable because your body is designed to want all of those macronutrients. So you can still overeat eating only protein and fats, like almost very easily, actually. Like, fats have a higher caloric value than your carbs and your proteins do. Now, they're a longer burning energy source, but it is just as easy to overeat on any of those macronutrient restricting fad diets as it is if you were to eat all of the macronutrients all at once. But if you balance your meals and you make sure that you have protein, carbs, and fats, and with every meal, you're going to feel full, you're going to feel satiated, and you're not going to feel the need to overeat, because you're giving your body exactly what it needs. And it's going to eventually feel safe enough to get rid of the excess energy store, which is fat. So if you look at the fat storage in your body, that's your body just hoarding energy, essentially. It's saying, okay, I'm not getting enough food right now, so I'm going to hold on to all of this until I feel safe enough and we're getting fed consistently to get rid of all of that extra body fat, basically. So
and when we say this, we're talking about long-term sustainable fat loss, not just weight loss. So yes, if you eat very little amount of calories, you will lose a lot of weight really quickly. The issue is you also lose a lot of muscle, which means your metabolism tanks, and then it makes it harder to keep the weight off. And before long, you are 45 years old and you can't figure out why you can't lose weight because you're dieting and exercising all the time. So it's important to realize that there is a substantial difference between these two things. So when you read people's lost like 40, 50 pounds in a very drastic amount of, like, very short amount of time, a lot of times that's not always a good thing. A lot of times they're going to have a rebound effect. It's going to be very hard to maintain that. And a lot of what they lost was actually very crucial muscle. And Tori can attest for this too. When we say muscle, I know that scares a lot of women, but you're not going to turn into Arnold. You're not going to look like John. If anything, you'll just look like Tori. And that's basically like end goals anyway. Like, no one goes into the gym and goes, I want to be so skinny that all my clothes fall off of me because I have no ass. Yeah, no one actually wants that, I promise.
And I tell a lot of women that the body that they want is going to be heavier than they think that it is. And the whole, like, everybody wants to tone. Every woman wants this nice toned body, but they don't understand or realize that to have that toned look requires a lot of muscle, which takes a long time to build, but even longer if you're not eating to sustain that. So yeah, like, don't just be hyper focused on the number that's on the scale, because that is a very, very small piece of information that in the grand scheme of things is honestly irrelevant to a lot of things. Like, I got down to what I thought my goal weight was, and I am now very happily sitting almost 10 pounds heavier than that and feel fantastic. And I eat the foods that I enjoy, and I move my body in a way that I enjoy. And that is the secret to it, is finding movement that you like, eating foods that you enjoy, that you can sustain, and also understanding that, like, over restriction will cause you to binge. There is a vicious cycle in the binge restrict, that heavy restriction of any food group is going to lead you into a binge every single time. You see it with professional bodybuilders. They will restrict, and they have these highly restrictive diets for, 12, 24 weeks, however long their prep cycle is. And then they almost always post-show, you'll see them, they have really bad body dysmorphia. They will balloon back up because they have not enjoyed food. They've not been able to have balance for several months, and then they just can't control themselves, and they gain all of that weight back really, really quickly. But having a balanced diet and including the foods that you enjoy literally every single day will help prevent you from binging either at the end of the day or on the weekends, or whatever that cycle looks like for you. Listening to your body, saying, okay, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat when I'm hungry, I'm going to stop when I'm full, I'm going to include the foods that I like. That's going to help you reach your goals far, far quicker, but longer, because it's not something that you can do in 6 weeks or even 6 months. Like, it has taken me 3 full years of doing this to get to this point. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, lifting is a lesson in delayed gratification. And once you understand that, like, a lot of those frustrations are going to kind of go away, but you have to trust the process, and you have to understand that food is not your enemy. Food is fuel. Food is power. I mean, it is one of the key components of reaching your goals. Like, you can lift weights all day long, every day, for hours and hours and hours, and it's not going to matter if you're not eating enough. You're going to feel drained. You're going to feel like crap. You're not going to have any energy. You're going to be irritable, especially for women. You could run the risk of losing your period, which your hormones are imbalanced. Your cortisol levels are all over the place. It's a hot mess. So just eat more. It is okay. 1,500 calories is still, for most people, not enough food. So don't be afraid to eat more. Do it slowly, do it calculated. It's going to take time to figure it out, but it's time to shift away from the diet culture. 1,200 calories is king. It's because it's a lie, and I don't care what doctors say, honestly. Like, doctors don't have enough, unless you're a registered dietitian, because that's what they do. But doctors don't have enough training in actual nutrients to know that, like, yes, 1,200 calories will make you lose weight quickly, but only for a certain amount of time, and your body will run out of places to go. So Josh, I guess, has up my transformation.
I wanted to share this to prove that what eating properly can do. This is
And there is maybe 15 pounds between those photos. I think there on the left, I was probably about 100 and... No, that might have been at my heaviest. That might have been at 193 pounds, but the one on the right is, I want to say, probably 165. So,
and this is something that worked for men too. So, not to steal the thunder here, but this is me in 3 years as well. So, and that's not from. I can guarantee you, like going from this to this, it was not from restricting food. And I stayed fairly lean the entire process too. So, and this was eating. Something else you need to also remember too is everyone is slightly different. So I can't say like my caloric needs and you go out and start eating this and expect to get the same results. So this is a trial and error thing. There's no one can look at you and say this is how much you need to eat. There is a process to doing it, and it starts simply by like understanding how nutrition works. And if you need help with that, there's videos on our channels. Feel free to ask questions. We're always here to answer those questions to help them. But for example, this was me eating nearly 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, day in, day out, constantly making sure that I'm hitting my protein, stuff along those lines. Like that's the difference between weight loss and fat loss. Fat loss is a drastically different game, but it's the long-term benefit you'll always get from just focusing on fat loss.
Well, and understanding, like, having a goal, like knowing you can't do it all at once. Like, pick a goal and stick with it for 6-12 months, like, yes, almost a year or better. It's going to take that long, if not longer, to reach the goals that you have in mind. But for Josh, his goal was to gain weight. So calorically, he needs to be in a surplus for his body, and what his body requires nutritionally is a lot of food. Like he said, 4,000 to 5,000 calories. That's almost 3 times as much as most people need. But he carries it very well. But that's what having more muscle mass does, is it allows you to eat more food because your body requires more energy to sustain that muscle mass. So at 185 pounds now.
Yep.
Still has abs, like he's still very lean, very vascular. And I'm sitting at maybe 15 pounds under him. But having a lot of muscle mass also allows me to be able to eat upwards of 25. My maintenance probably sits at around 2,500 calories. If I want to bulk and put on muscle or gain weight, then I'm looking at 3,000 or more calories. If I want to lose some body fat, then I have to cut it down by 300 to 400 calories. Like, you don't need these drastic deficits or these drastic surpluses. You need about 300 to 400 calories either direction from your maintenance. But you need to find your maintenance first, which is maintaining weight. So if you're going to have some fluctuations throughout the week, and that's pretty normal. But on average, if you are generally maintaining the same weight, you're at maintenance, whatever calories look like for that. You want to then cut body fat, 300 to 400 calorie deficit. If you want to gain muscle, then you'll need about 300 to 400 calories in the opposite direction, but not restricting either food groups. Here are some other
I wanted to share
results.
I feel like this is a really good indicator of kind of what we're talking about whenever it comes to weight loss versus fat loss. This is Christine. I call her Champion. She's freaking awesome. But
Love
she, as you can see on the InBody scale, she did lose about 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. But the biggest difference is she lost 4% body fat and actually gained 2 pounds of muscle. But as you can see, like that's the kind of difference that most people are looking for. So, and this came from her eating quite a bit. Like she was, I think we had her somewhere in the range of like 1,600 to 1,700 calories when she made this change. So that's kind of the big differences that you're looking for. So just weight loss, you wouldn't see like these big differences from such little changes in weight.
Another kind of term that I tend to throw around a lot is your BMR. And I think I talked about that maybe a little bit in my last live. But your BMR is your basic metabolic rate. So it's the rate at which you burn calories if you were to do nothing. So I explain this in terms of if you were in a coma, your body would still burn X amount of calories. And that would be for general bodily functions. So your brain to be thinking, your body to be digesting, for you to just literally exist and be alive, your body burns X amount of calories. And that number is generally based off of overall weight and also muscle mass. So like I said, the more muscle mass you have, the more energy it requires to maintain that muscle mass. But also people who are heavier also burn a lot more calories because they're toting around a lot of extra weight, and they typically have more muscle mass than either they or anyone else would expect them to have, simply because they're toting around, however much extra weight that they want to shed. So for them, their BMR is going to naturally sit a little bit higher. But for instance, my BMR sits at around 1,600 calories. So if I eat at least 1,600, that's his minimum amount of calories that my body needs to just survive. That's not to maintain my muscle mass. That's not to maintain weight. That is literally to live. I need a minimum of 1,600 calories. So if you're eating below your BMR, that can be super, super detrimental to your overall health, your hormones, like the way that your body functions in general. You should never, ever, ever eat below what your BMR is. And most people don't even understand, you don't know what a BMR is until you get to an in-body, but that's kind of what we're here for, is to say, okay, this is base calories. We need to get you eating more than that in order for you to find your goals. But that scares people because we've all been told 1,500 calories, 1,200 calories. If you eat more than that, you're going to gain weight. Sure, but it's not, weight gain is not always bad. That's like Josh. He put on 15 pounds of muscle. That's a big deal. That is good weight gain. It's not, weight gain does not equate body fat. So if we stop with the combining those two things together, weight loss and fat loss being two totally separate things. Most people don't realize that you want to lose fat and not just lose weight. It's like you said, with a lot of those fad diets, yes, you lose weight. You will lose weight on 1,200 calories, but it's muscle, a little bit of body fat, a little bit of muscle, and water. Be water retention. So not everything that you're seeing is fat loss like people want.
I completely agree, and I appreciate having you as a living example of this. We have about 5 minutes left. I did get some questions beforehand. If anyone has any questions who's watching this, feel free to drop them now. This is the Q&A portion. First things first, we'll go back and forth on this. The first question was, how did you figure out what your BMR is, or how did you figure out what maintenance is? And before we had an in-bodies just tell you, so it makes it so much easier. But before, we would basically start with, we have an equation. You can even go on bodybuilding.com, type in BMR, and it has a calculator. It'll give you a good starting point. The hardest part is the beginning, because the beginning you have to be pretty dang strict. You just have to be. You have to track your food, you have to make sure you're eating that, and you have to weigh yourself pretty much every day and figure out what your average is. If you don't lose weight and you don't gain weight, then you're good. And that's how you know where your BMR is.
You have to be strict, but you don't have to be restrictive.
Yes, you have to be strict, but you have to be strict with logging. You have to be honest with what you're eating, because you need to know the numbers. So the best thing I always tell everyone to do in the beginning, and we even teach nutrition in a very similar way, is in the very beginning, figure out what you feel like your base level is, what your maintaining weight is or maintaining calories are. Log your food using MyFitnessPal. What was the other one you used to use?
I used to use an app called LifeSum, and I really liked it because it gave me smiley faces and gave me very good visual representation of balance, because
Hmm.
that's what LifeSum was more of like, okay, this meal is perfectly balanced in both carbs, proteins, and fats. And it would give me little smiley faces. Um, to, for each food, it would say, okay, this food has higher nutritional value and this food has less nutritional value. And then it would give me like an overall rating for the day. And for whatever reason, that just worked really well for me and I liked it a lot.
So
So,
yeah, so find a app that you can track. Don't do it by paper. That's freaking too hard. Like,
yeah.
you have a phone, use your phone. So track your food and be very honest with yourself. I would even weigh your food out. You need to be as detailed as possible for the first 2 weeks. And your goal is you're going to weigh yourself um, every single day, and you're going to take an average of those 2 days. And over the 2 week span, if your average weight has stayed the same, then you know you found your maintenance and we're good to go. From there, it's just a matter of adding 300 or subtracting 300 calories based on your goal. Some rules to live by, though, they're like a dime a dozen. If you are a female, you want at least 0.8 grams of protein per body fat. If you're a male, 1 gram's pretty good. What was that app, Tori? Someone just asked.
It's called LifeSum, LIFESUM.
Now, if you're a DH client, we provide you with an app to track your food with. That is, personally, in my opinion, a lot better, just because we can actually help you.
I just like the visuals of LifeSum. But something to touch on as far as like determining whether to take calories away or to add calories depending on your goals. For instance, if somebody has been in a chronic deficit or has been in a long-term deficit, you're already at your body's absolute lowest amount of calories that it can go, you will have to reverse diet.
Mm-hmm.
What a reverse diet means is that you are slowly increasing your calories to find your new maintenance, which your maintenance can change as you build muscle mass. Your maintenance is going to increase. But if you've been in a chronic deficit, I'm talking about years or even like being in a deficit for more than 6 months, eventually your body's going to stop responding to that and you have to go in the opposite direction. So if you're not losing any more weight at 1,700 calories, we can't really pull much more from that before your body starts to go into a dysfunctional mode. So having to go into a reverse diet might be something that is necessary. And then you will still find that going into a reverse diet, you lose body fat. Most people do. I was that person. I had to reverse diet and I had to increase my calories. And as soon as I did that, I lost weight again.
Yeah,
So,
that's and a lot of people, especially I would say 30 plus, who are just getting into this. A lot of you honestly are going to have to start with reverse dieting. So you're going to have to accept the first part of your journey is going to be focused more on building that metabolism back up than it is actually like seeing the scale move or like losing body fat in general, because you've gone so long with eating so little. But that's if it gets to that point, I would recommend talking to a coach or a professional in that regard, because reverse dieting is a little bit more complex than than just general finding your maintenance. But yeah, so basically rules to live by: 2 weeks, weigh yourself every day, be very strict, eat the same amount of calories every single day, take the average of the first week and the average of the second week, and if it stayed the same, then you're good to go, and add or subtract 300 based on goal. The other one, this one was specifically for you. Is breakfast important? And if so, what would you recommend?
oh yes, breakfast is very important. But I would say that what's most important about breakfast, especially if you are a caffeine user, I know a lot of people enjoy having their coffee first thing in the morning. Eat before you consume caffeine. But so if you're waking up and you're not hungry, that means your body is running on cortisol, which is that stress hormone that is big, big bad. We don't like cortisol. If you're waking up and you're hungry, that is a really good sign, and you need to absolutely eat breakfast. I recommend within an hour of waking up. And if you're not hungry, still need to eat, because that's what's going to start that metabolism back up. You've noticed if you eat breakfast, typically hungry by noontime, and then you eat at noon, and then you're typically hungry again by dinner. That is a really good sign. Stop ignoring your hunger cues. They exist for a reason. So yes, I'm not a huge fan of the intermittent fasting because again, that's teaching you to ignore your hunger cues, which tell you a lot about how your metabolism is functioning. So 100% eat breakfast. As far as breakfast goes, um, you know, Josh tends to have like a higher fat breakfast, which depending on what your lifestyle is, that might be more beneficial because, like I said, fat is a longer burning energy source, so it's going to keep you energized and fuller for longer throughout the morning. So you're not typically as hungry by, you're not starving. You don't feel like you're starving to death by noon. You still should be hungry, but you're not gonna be hungry again within a couple of hours, basically. So, having some carbs, prioritizing fats, and then having protein with your breakfast. Whatever that looks like for you, depending on what you like. We're big hard-boiled egg fans. Eat a lot of hard-boiled eggs.
Kodiak waffles. A lot of Kodiak
waffles. Yep. I've been really enjoying like a Kodiak waffle with like a little bit of vanilla Greek yogurt and some raspberry jam and peanut butter, and mix that in and slap it on top, and I'm good to go with a hard-boiled egg. Like, it doesn't have to be as complex. Eat the foods that you like. Oats are super versatile. You can either have sweet or you can have savory oats. They will take on just about any flavor that you have. But absolutely eat before you consume caffeine. Higher fats in the morning. Prioritize eating carbs around, when you work out or when you need more energy, more quick energy. And that's when you can kind of play around with it like that. But yes, everything that they say about breakfast is absolutely true. So eat your breakfast.
The last question here, at least anyone wants to ask one in the chat real quick. I thought this was a fun one because this is something you struggle with. This is, should you know what you're doing before getting help?
Should you know what you're doing? No.
So basically, it just reminded me whenever you thought you had to be an experienced lifter to come to DH was kind of how I took it. So it wasn't DH specific though.
So help, there are professionals exist for a reason, right? You're not going to know it all unless you do extensive research. But the problem with the internet, and if you don't know how to do proper research, because there's so many conflicting opinions. Like, there are things that are just facts. Like, there are things that are just staples. Like, those things are not going to change. Those are constants in the world, and they will always work. But as far as like some of the more intricate stuff, like that, things are going to change. But talking to a professional was what got me to my goals far quicker than me just trying to do it on my own. I tried for myself for about 6 to 8 months before I plateaued, and I said, okay, this is no longer within my wheelhouse of knowledge, and it's time to seek additional help if I want to improve the way that I want. I did that first by reaching out to a registered dietitian who helped me understand that, yes, I was under eating for my activity goals. She kind of gave me like a general baseline to try. It wound up working, and I said, okay, great. And then I decided, okay, I'm really just ready to step it up a notch. I think I should get a coach. And man, that changed my entire life in a lot of different ways. Wound up getting me a husband out of the deal. Husband results may vary. But getting a coach was what got me to my goals far quicker than if I were to just try and guess everything, by myself, because they've done the research and oftentimes they've done the trial and error on their own. For me, I've done a lot of that trial and error so that I can help other people not have to go through those same struggles and frustrations, because, if somebody already knows what they're doing, why would you feel like you have to have equal source knowledge before reaching out to them for help? Like, To me, that doesn't make any sense. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, get help sooner rather than later. You know, the best thing that you can do is invest in yourself. I know that coaching can seem like a lot of money, um, but honestly, like, how much money do you waste on dumber things? You know, that's what I always think about. Like, I've wasted a lot of money on a lot of stupid crap in my life. But the best thing I did was invest in a coach for my fitness goals. So spend the money, do it. Like, it is okay. Like, you will not regret it as long as you do what it is that your coach is telling you to do. You're going to reach your goals because they know what they're doing and you don't. And that's why you're seeking their help. So yeah, do it. Just go all in, get you a coach. Stop it, get some help. Absolutely.
Listen to Michael. Listen to
Yes.
him. But
Do
with
it.
that being said, we are over on time. So I want to say thank you for everyone who stopped in and joined us for this. I appreciate every single one of you. If you need any help with this or you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us or comment in the group. Dedicated to Fitness is here to help you and help you reach your goals. And we are all trained professionals. So we'll give you nothing but the best advice and stuff that we know what we're talking about. Otherwise, we'll tell you we don't know and try to guide you in the right direction. But with that being said, thank you all and stay dedicated.